we come down to the Tea Hotel. Very lucky to have a chance to work with Milford Haven Port Authority, and specifically with Claire Lawrence, Claire's a project manager for the Port Authority, and one of Claire's recent big jobs that she'll be working on as project managing the Tea Hotel. We're working on this for the case study that you've got to produce, so you can use the Tea Hotel as a case study and you can dip into this resource and find information. So Claire knows more than anybody about this, so we're able to pick her brains, and she's going to start off by, no pressure there, so she's going to start off by telling us a little bit about what it's like to be a project manager and what the job involves, and also kind of what the grand vision of the Port Authority is for Milford Haven. So over to you. Thanks, Claire.
Yeah, no problem. So as a project manager, we generally get drafted in at the very kind of concept of an idea, and we are then, for a client, given a brief. So that would be what they want to achieve, what the budget is for the project, and we tend to go through Moscow, which is a kind of like scoring mechanism of things that must come out of a project, things that are nice to have but could be dropped off if the budget doesn't allow, or there's other forms of constraints, and also things that we perhaps do not want from a project. That could be something to do around the design or around the image, or it could be something that we had feedback from our stakeholders. As a trust port and based in Milford Haven, stakeholders were a really big part of our master plan. So we went for outline planning and have a full master plan that was kind of developed for the area. So that covered everything from the costa that started, hotel, and then further developments down the marina itself that will come over the next few years. So for ourselves, once we decided that the hotel was kind of the next phase for us to start developing, we internally go through a brief, decide what we want from our land, the commercial side of it, what kind of return we want on our investment, whether that's over 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. As a trust port as well, we have the ability that we can not always put the kind of commercial return on it as such an important part for us. If it benefits the community, say, then we can use that as a kind of overriding factor to do something that's good and enhances the area. So we came up with a brief and we started to look at what kind of operators we wanted for the hotel. Went through whether that was Moxie, Premier Inn, some kind of well-known household names. But we also decided that actually we wanted a kind of Welsh company to lead. It just felt like it fitted with our own kind of goals, and it has, we thought as well that their own visions as a company matched ours and would be better for the local community. So from that, then as a project manager, you get involved in drawing up kind of tenders, interviewing anybody that's going to be involved in the projects, whether that's the architectural design team, meeting with Celtic Manor as well to find out what their expectations are from the project. You define where your key stage is going to be, where you need to get sign-off, for example, so whether that would be at a certain threshold for money spent, whether that needed to go to our chief exec, whether it needed to go to our board, whether that was something that we needed to engage with our stakeholders or the local council, for example, with planning. And then once you kind of get through the planning stage and you've had all your design discussions and engagements, it's then onto site. So as the project manager for the team, I was down here maybe 3-4 days a week, checking that the design was being followed by the site team, checking the health and safety. So it's a CDM project, the Tea Hotel, so that means an F10 was put in place and that the site was effectively handed over from Milford Haven Port Authority to Castle Lauren as the main contractor.
Can you explain those terms?
Yes, so CDM is the Construction Design Management 2015, so they're regulations that you follow, and it means it is a project of either a certain size or over a certain amount of working hours. And you apply for an F10, which is a notice that goes to the Health and Safety Executive, so they're aware of the project. They're then able to do any kind of spot inspections they'd like to come to site. We actually had 2 visits from the Health and Safety Executive, spot inspections. One was for dust control, it was a hot topic and they were doing inspections, and we didn't have any notices or anything picked up. They actually gave the good feedback to the contractor as well for good practices, which is always really nice to hear. They're not the best at giving out praise, they're good at...
They're punitive, aren't they?
Yeah.
Shut everybody down. And,
So an F10 then notice is displayed and held in the site cabin on site as well, and it's also kind of a public notice. So if anybody has any queries about the project, it's got contact numbers, who's responsible for the design. So in this case it's Holden Mathias and the architects. So if there was any queries or something they thought that wasn't quite right, they can contact them, and then also us as the client and the owner. Again, so our details are made public if there's any inquiries, and kind of like a planning notice. Then a principal contractor then was appointed as Carter Lawrence, so they take on the full responsibility of the site. So that's securing the site, that's all health and safety documentation, and ensuring that the build is safely managed, not only during the construction as well, but during handover, and that the design is considered. So for example, maintaining the building, are there easy access points to carry out the maintenance? Because there's no point designing a fabulous building and then it becomes really dangerous to try and maintain it because you can't access the plant, or you've got to stand on the top of the ladder to try and get your head through a small hole to access fans, M&E equipment, anything like that. So it's really important that they run through the full design, function of the building and the operation of it, that it is going to be compliant as well as safe all the way through.
Especially in the area like this, and I've got lots of houses.
Yeah, exactly. So when we were going through the kind of preparation and mobilisation of the site, that's one thing that they found. Obviously, the site is extremely, extremely tight. You've got water on one side, you've got an access road on the other that could not be obstructed at any point. We also had to go through a demolition process before the hotel was even built as well, which in itself, demolishing a building has got risks. We demolished it kind of floor by floor to try and minimise rather than any explosives or
tricky, because you were talking about asbestos before that was there.
Yeah, so it was a really old building, and we had to get it cleared of all the pigeons and stuff beforehand as well. There was asbestos in there, so the asbestos was all taken out beforehand, and anything else that just looked a bit nasty, we thought, right, take that all out by hand first, get it away from site, and then you can start the demolition. So again, that was done stage by stage, floor by floor, and it was all taken away the same day. So we literally had lorries waiting, so we didn't have any piles of any kind of rubble or rubbish remaining on site. A, because we didn't have the room, and it restricted the movements then, and made it an unsafe site. But B, also just to get it straight away to the kind of recycling centres or landfills, that's what it needs to be, just to process the materials and get them away as soon as possible.
Yeah. Fantastic. We were going to ask a question about one section of the MARC scheme, which is about the local well-being of communities. You'll find it's section B of the MARC scheme, and it's 10 MARC sections, so you've got to make sure you cover it nicely. It's looking at how the build has been created to benefit the local community. So that's what we're looking at. How have you thought about that, Claire?
So as part of the master plan, we found that the marina before the hotel was used quite well, mainly by locals, not so much wide known in Pembrokeshire. Generally the tourism trade was going to the likes of St David's, Tenby, the kind of bigger touristy hotspots, and that's where people would be staying, that's where they'd be spending more money, and that the local economy was benefiting from it. Whereas Milford would seem to be much more kind of local families or using the marina, drive through, they might pop down, use Tesco's, the retail park, maybe come down here for a meal in the evening or on a weekend lunchtime, and then they'd go after maybe a couple of hours. So for us, we really wanted to make Milford a destination. We realised that we've got a fantastic marina, we've got a waterfront presence here, there's a lot to offer with the small businesses already on the marina, and we wanted to create something that wasn't going to compete with them. It was going to be something that added to the area, that people could use, would also bring people into the area, make them stay longer, not just for those 1 or 2 hours, but stay overnight, and then okay, they might eat in the restaurant here one night, but the next day then they're eating in a restaurant further down the marina or going for lunch somewhere else, spending time in the shops and using this as their base if they want to go and explore the rest of Pembrokeshire rather than just coming here for half a day or so. So one of the main kind of designs of the hotel as well, was we want to make as much impact and as use of the waterfront view as possible, because that's what's really attractive to especially tourists. If they see it marketed somewhere and you've got a lovely picture view of the marina out of your bedroom, it's fantastic. And also there's quite a quaint like kind of, I don't know what you want to call it, interest in, I suppose, like the fishing industry that's still here as well as the industry of RWE and the power station stuff that you can see on the waterway. They do look lovely at night, maybe not so much in the day. But people have got an interest. There's lots of stuff going on around here. It's not just a flat coastline with the sea. We've actually got bustling kind of, you've got the fish markets going on over there. Leisure boats in and out all of the time. You've got Spitzer tugs that come in, we've got dry dock here. So it was trying to gel all of this kind of history and the current working place as well. And also for the hotel, it serves as a purpose as well for those working industries, so it's used a lot by the likes of the port, RWE, the big kind of employees in the area. They use it for functions, they use it for staff if they've got people visiting from away. It was nice to have somewhere where they can stay. And, all right, 10 minutes up the road, you can be at Southwark ourselves, you've got Dragon, somewhere that was of good quality that people of Milford were proud to kind of say, yes, use this, we've got a great hotel, it's a lovely restaurant, there's a really nice bar for meeting for coffee or for a drink. That was really important to us. And also we chose a Welsh contractor for the tender and the build, which also when they were on site then used local suppliers, used local labour to help build a hotel, which was really great to be able to give that opportunity. Also going forward as well, the employment of the hotel itself. So there's front of house staff, there's kitchen staff, there's cleaners, maintenance staff, and the opportunity that's given the local area and the amount of jobs has been brilliant. So that's,
I guess they came because it's their area,
they're
isn't
proud
it?
of it.
Yeah, exactly. They want it to look, they want it to do well.
Yeah, if you live close to where you work, you want to be proud to say, oh yeah, I work there, and also they're then spending more money in the local area, they spend more time there, perhaps their families come down and stay or visit them. So yeah, it's really a nice kind of way to boost the income in the area and to keep it in on the table.
Yeah, perfect. Well, that covered that really nicely, I think, because lots of information to dip into. Fantastic. So we've kind of covered quite a lot of different aspects now. I'm running out of things that we need to go over, so which is a good thing, really. But to finish off, so I said the same thing to Stephen, the architect, which was about things, people who might be interested in their career path, doing what Claire does. So that's project management as a career, and it's really nice to talk to somebody who's a female doing that role, because part of what we do in school, and wider afield as well, is this new Spark programme where we're trying to encourage girls to get more into STEM careers. So thanks for being such an inspiring role model as a woman coming, and that'll go towards the girls who study built environment, because we don't have enough girls studying built environment. Not yet, 2 this year. We need to boost those numbers. So your job as a project manager then, what sort of skills do you need to do it? If somebody was in the class and they were thinking about that as a career option, could you give them some advice? Could you tell them what sort of skills they need to do that?
So my first bit of advice is for anybody to not think of the construction industry as this kind of dirty, underpaid industry that is just full of blokes in high vis that are all just kind of laddish behaviour on a site. That isn't what it is anymore. It's full of so many different opportunities, so many different skills at different levels, from apprenticeships all the way through up to senior managers and directors and owners, and you play such an important role. There's such a variety of projects you can get involved in that as a career it can be really fulfilling, and you don't have to just kind of step into it and think, okay, I'm a project manager at the port. So I started off as an apprentice at the port. I then moved on to kind of maintenance and our in-house engineering division, then went on to project management. And just in my short career as a project manager, I've gone from a hotel to delivering a slipway to a pontoon to office space, and you need the same kind of skills. The organisation is one, really good kind of social skills, because at the end of the day as a project manager you need to get everybody to work together. That's your core function, is to make sure that you have a team of, whether that's the construction, the architects, the M&E designers, but also your client and the operators are all working together to deliver this kind of single goal. So you really need to be able to win people over. Problem solving is really, really important. So quick thinking, and if you love to thrive and work under pressure, which is something I do, then it's absolutely perfect. It's not all stressful, but when you're in a delivery phase, then yes, everybody's got kind of deadlines and budgets to meet. But that is something that I find really exciting, and it's so rewarding to think, okay, from the start of the demolition through to us or in the first drink in the hotel was less than 2 years. It's a really quick turnaround in time frame, and that can be that's a really exciting thing to do. And you can also transfer those skills onto projects of all sorts. It doesn't just have to be the built environment. You can use them in industry for Hinkley points and HS2s. You can do them for IT infrastructure, for rollouts for Google, and subsea things. You can use them for MOD. They use a lot of their project managers for planning, for military, and it's just so broad. It's really a really exciting industry, and easy to kind of see different opportunities and move around if you want to as well.
What a positive message.
Yeah.
Yes.
More positive than the art.
Oh yes. We won't ask about money, but I imagine the money's pretty good too. So thank you for your time, Claire.
No problem.
We've really, really enjoyed our time this afternoon.
Yeah.
So over to you students now. We've got to start work on your case study. Best of luck with that. All
Best
right.
of luck.
Take care. Bye.
You couldn't have any restrictions, and if there was anything you would have really liked to have done, but because of the location you couldn't have, or was it all quite?
Yeah, so I guess like on the original design, that private dining area was larger, and it was kind of built to have like a conference area.
Yeah.
Because there's no conferencing facilities locally at the time. But because of the size and the restriction we had to get the number of covers in the restaurant that was needed to make it a profitable commercial business, we decided we'd get rid of the conferencing side of it and have it as a private dining area, which could be used for smaller meetings.
Because that's quite nice, and it's showing like sometimes it's very rare that you have an idea and everything happens exactly how you want it. You've always got to make adjustments and changes and work with what you've got, because that flows in well with what you were saying about there's like no space there to use literally every inch, every centimetre of what was available, and you can see that. Like even if the pillars are in the dining space, but you don't think anything of them. You don't see the structure of pillars, they just part of the...
Yeah, the same as the brace in that. In most places, you'd want that all to be hidden. You want them to be imposing in the kind of commercial area that makes you money effectively. But we could not avoid
if you'd blocked that off, it would have taken all
so much room. And the same with like access into... so like further down there, that kind of blue screen you can see, that's a slide in, it's a hidden door. So behind that, they could pull it back in the morning, that's where the breakfast area is served from. But they didn't want that on show, but we didn't have enough space to have it like further down the hotel and block off the end of the hotel. And we wanted to make sure that we didn't block any of the views, make the most of the waterfront. So again, we were like, right, we'll put a pocket door design in. It could be closed off, and it'll look like an art feature there on the wall as part of the restaurant later.
It's quite
on in the day.
continental. I was staying in a hotel called Wake Up Copenhagen, and it's like it was quite a high-rise building that looked out over the waterfront of Copenhagen. And this is kind of like that. You've got that beautiful, airy, but still contained sort of feeling to it. It feels nice. It's like cozy, but not cozy, isn't it? I think it's good. It just works, doesn't it?
And that's something that you've got to do. The architects have to consider in this design is people are sleeping upstairs. The acoustics, everybody wants high ceilings, it's light and airy, but also the higher the ceilings are, the more the acoustic bounces around the building. There's a load of glazing in here, so we were really limited on where we could put in buffers to keep the noise down. Because also, because this restaurant and the bar is open to external guests as well, and they've got licenses for parties and later openings. It's trying to get the balance between, you don't want to have people disturb can I sleep, because it is a hotel first and foremost. Also, you don't want to be putting a restriction and trying to tell everyone you've got to leave by 10 o'clock or keep your noise down. So again, putting acoustic barriers in, and the design of the downstairs area is really important.
Right, shall we
Go for it.
start? Really good local landmark that they can look at, and we were interested in, like I say, getting under the hood of it really, and finding out what went on with the build and how the concept came about, and how you communicate with your client and things like that. So anything you can tell us is useful.
No problem
I'm
at
sorry,
all.
I'm Myriam, and this is Sophie.
Hello.
Hi, I'm Steve. You've got that bit already. So do you want me to? So I'm one of the partners here at Holden Mathias. Every project has a partner in charge of it. So I've been working with Milford Haven for ages, at least a decade, Claire, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
One way or another. And so I'm the responsible partner for the Tea Hotel, which came out of initially a smallish master planning exercise on a different part of the waterfront that included the hotel, it included a restaurant building, and it included a small convenience store like a Lidl or an Aldi or something like that. We did a proposal for the restaurant building, which would have been very exciting because it would have sat in the dock, and was pretty much unviable. However, the hotel, one way or another, was a viable development. It started life as a Premier Inn, and we have done several Premier Inns as a practice over the years. It then morphed into a Moxie hotel, okay, and which was an interesting option, because a Moxie hotel, what they try and do is develop a part of the hotel that's nuanced, if you like, to its location. So although they got like a Premier Inn, it's very standard, particularly in relation to the bedrooms and such like. The front of house aspects of the hotel would have been a little bit more bespoke, if you like, to the waterfront. So the design of the building was always around about I think it started when it was a Premier Inn at about 60 bedrooms, and that was probably like 20 bedrooms per floor, so 3 stories basically. When it went to a Moxie hotel, it crept up to sort of 80, possibly 100, and then but the difference between the two is simply down to the bedrooms. So Moxie have a certain bedroom design, Premier Inn have a certain bedroom design, which is why they're always so standard right across the country. The Moxie hotel rooms were a bit smaller, particularly on the waterfront side, so we could get more in. But they also wanted several sort of family type rooms, and bigger sort of twin type rooms. So the building is, I'll come on to the sort of concept of the building, but just to explain that, you've got essentially sort of 3 sides of the building, but quite triangular in shape. And then to get more rooms in, as I said, the waterfront was exploited as much as possible, as you obviously would do, wouldn't you? And then the wing that looks down the dock towards the end of the marina was also exploited as much as possible. And of course then you've got the Nelson Key side, which is generally more family orientated, where they're not necessarily as interested in staring out across the marina or across the waterfront. When the Moxie hotel option fell away, Celtic Manor came in, because the T Hotel brand is part of the Celtic Manor, which obviously, as you know, in Newport. So a very well recognised hotel brand. However, their T Hotel brand was quite new. They wanted to develop a sort of three star plus type operation, but again, a bit like the Moxie Hotel, they wanted it bespoke to its location. Now they'd taken over a hotel at Magor, which you can see if you go on the M4 and you just go past the Magor turning. It's on the right hand side. I can't remember what it was before it was T. And they were developing one adjacent, or relatively adjacent, to the Celtic Manor Hotel in Newport. But because of COVID and things like that, it sort of stopped. So funnily enough, the waterfront scheme became the first really new bespoke T hotel to its situation. They embraced some of the aspects of the plans which we come up with for the Moxie Hotel, because they also wanted a minimum of 100 bedrooms. So what that now meant is the hotel grew in size vertically, which is why you've got 4 floors now over ground instead of 3. But they also needed some larger, more family orientated rooms, and a different arrangement of you can't say anything that they did was standard at all, to be honest. I think they using the Milford scheme was a way of them developing this new brand, if you like. But anyway, you've got family rooms, you've got larger family rooms, you've got smaller family rooms, you've got a couple of suites. They're generally the ones that if you've seen the building, they're the ones with the balconies or the sort of small terrace areas. And then they've got the smaller rooms, which just are no different to the Moxie Hotel scheme we did. In many ways, it was really good working with Celtic Manor. We knew them anyway, but because they were sort of focused on this new brand, and to be part of them developing a brand is always far more exciting than just saying, "Well, here's our brand, get on with it," kind of thing, like you would with the Premier Inn, if that makes sense. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. It's definitely. Could you talk about how the overall kind of aesthetic of the concept was developed? So you had the site, and you did sort of constraints of where it was, and I'm interested in how you kind of come up with the overall style of the building, whether it had to fit a vernacular, local sort of style, or the materials you chose developed.
Okay. Well, it sits on what used to be the ice house, which was almost like if you know Milford, you'll remember the ice house. I think it was a redundant building for ages and ages, but it was it was just a box, wasn't it? It didn't have any windows, had a couple of doors. That was about it. So the site, as I said, was triangular, but we ended up having to stretch the site as best we could, and the only way we could do that was go down Nelson Quay, and where the building gets narrow, particularly at ground floor. Aesthetically, obviously, it's a brick building, but we wanted to try and create a situation where you are celebrating fundamentally its location. You want to really find a way of giving the guests the best views possible, not only from a bedroom point of view, but also from a front of house point of view. So you can see it's fully, utterly glazed along the quayside, and that glazing and we would sort of call it like an active frontage. So it's an exciting frontage in that there's things going on, isn't there? There's activity, and that activity and active frontage goes round onto the plaza, the sort of small plaza side where the main entrance is. And then when you get to Nelson Quay, it's quite an inward looking facade, isn't it? And simply a function of the back of house operations, which are on that side, as opposed to the front of house operations, which are obviously on the quay side. So, which is why you get a series of spaces. One, if you take the return side where the main entrance is, you've got the main entrance followed by a small lounge area, followed by a bar area, followed by a restaurant seating area, followed by the private dining at the end. These spaces are all sort of linear, aren't they? And they all sort of one by one connect to each other, giving you that continuous active frontage and front of house space. So people, in a lot of ways, it's very legible in that regard. People can understand exactly how the space works. And then if you came into reception, which was dead in front of you when you come through the front door, and you turned to your right, where the toilets are, where the small gym spaces are, and where the lifts are, again, we've used every available opportunity to create active frontages wherever we could. Nelson Quay, as you probably experienced, is quite tight, isn't it? The pavement is very narrow there. We had to literally use every inch of available site to get this thing on it.
In some ways, it's hard to say which is the sort of front aspect of the building, isn't it? Because depending on how you approach it, and what always makes me think is about services for the building, because they're quite hidden, aren't they? You can't really tell where deliveries come on site or refuse and things goes away. That's quite well hidden, isn't it?
It's all everything like that is on the Nelson Quay frontage. Although there is obviously stuff will come through the main entrance, but there are if you walk down Nelson Quay, you'll see a series of doors. Some of them are directly onto service spaces, which are only then connected to Nelson Quay, but others are the main either escape corridor from a means of escape point of view, or a corridor that leads directly to all of the different service spaces, like the kitchen and the kitchen storage areas, the refuse areas. Everything in that regard is off Nelson Quay, and you'll see a sort of series of doors that actually relate aesthetically to the windows above. So it's not random. It's that facade or that side of the building is composed at ground floor in relation to what's going on above, if you see what I mean. In terms of the materials, it's brick building, but what we wanted to do was to relate it to, particularly at ground floor, plinth level, if you like, was to relate it to the heritage of its immediate context. So you've got the museum on the other side of Nelson Quay. These buildings are all done in this sort of split-faced stone. So which is why you've got the sort of split-faced stone ground floor aesthetic with the brickwork then above. And the brick is meant to be relatively neutral. It's not meant to try and mimic anything. And it was quite an interesting contrast to the stone below. Whether you think the stone has successfully been split-faced, it definitely has been, but it's not quite what we wanted in relation to the other buildings, particularly the historic buildings that are adjacent and actually on the other side of the waterfront.
It contrasts quite nicely with it's like a herringbone. It's that zinc cladding that's on the front aspect there.
Yeah. And that was just simply a feature helping to announce the entrance below it. So again, you've got something that's different. So from a legibility point of view, your eye is thinking, what's a bit different? Is that the entrance? Do you see what I mean? And it projects slightly again to announce the entrance, which is below it. It's just an architectural device in that regard.
That's great. Well, we're sat here in the downstairs.
I can see you are. It looks like an amazing day.
Oh, the sun's blasting. It's wonderful. Yeah. So
whereabouts are you? Are you right at the back by the
We've got
by the private
diners.
dining room,
Yeah,
or you
just
in the
in
right?
that
Are you in the private dining room, or
No,
just
we're not in
before
it.
it?
Just before it.
That's the
Yeah.
door. I can just about see the door. Is it? That's the door, Claire. Is it?
Yeah. Well, that's great. How do you communicate your designs with the client then? So, I mean, we learned that you put a proposal together to kind of sell them your idea. How do you do that? Is that sketches? Is that elevations? And do you
All
use
sorts of
CAD to
things.
do that? Models,
Yeah,
physical models?
yeah. We Claire will know that we made a model of the entire marina area, because there were other projects which sort of followed on much more. I think what would you call it, Claire? The phase 2,
Yeah, the
which is
phase 2 of the
which
master
runs
plan.
further along down the quayside from the T Hotel. So because they were master planning it, there were further projects much more master planning orientated. We decided we'd make a physical model. We have a model maker in house, that these different projects could be then illustrated much more comprehensively, if you like. They're a great tool because models don't lie. They're interactive things, aren't they? They're touchy-feely things. So yeah, we use models, we use CGI, we use 2D drawings, and we use my felt tip pen.
Oh, yes. Is that a Pentel sign pen?
Of course, it's a Pentel sign pen. Yeah, they're the only pens in town, mate.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. That's good to hear. We do a lot of work with SketchUp, 3D
Yeah.
CAD modeling, and that's quite a useful tool. We do that in school quite a bit.
Yeah, well,
that's all-
SketchUp was because of the because of when this project was design developed, if you like. SketchUp was a really important tool. These days, we now use software called Revit, which is a three-dimensional AutoCAD software, which we try not to use SketchUp anymore. But yeah, Revit is a 3D
Yes.
drawing program, which you've probably heard of.
You can do all the BIM stuff through it, and
In
give people
theory,
access to-
yeah, pretty complicated, but yeah.
yeah.
So as I say, during the design of the T Hotel, SketchUp was a really important tool. So yeah, so we would have used SketchUp, we would have used sign pens, black ones, blue ones, green ones, and red ones, and we would have used 2D drafting techniques, but actually latterly, when we got to technical design development, the building was drawn in Revit, was drawn in the 3D program. It was actually, funny enough, was one of the early schemes to be drawn in Revit in relation to into the office using it.
I learned quite a lot about that. I interviewed a campus Holden in Pembroke, and they'd been working on the Nayland Community Hub. And the first time I'd seen how you can integrate the mechanical and electrical systems within everything else,
and the structure and everything. Yeah, the whole way. As long as everybody's drawing in the same program, you integrate these things, and the idea being that you can where things clash and things don't work, it's much more easy to see them on the screen than it is than having to wait for the problem to turn up on site.
All the elements of your design have got like metadata embedded in them, so that a door has embedded information inside it, things like that, isn't it? That you can.
It does if you put the information in. If you just put the door in, it's just the door. But if you say this is the door, and that's what we would call BIM level 2. So where you actually putting in what the wall build-ups are, for example, what the door is, what its function is, half hour, fire resistance an hour, fire resistance 20 minutes, whatever, whether it's oak, laminate, everything has to be put in. It doesn't put it. Does that make sense? It doesn't put itself in. So there's BIM level 1, which everybody uses. Essentially, that's the drawing tool, and the way that you can integrate, as we discussed, the services aspects of the project and the structural aspects, or any aspects of the project, curtain walling, whatever it might be, in that regard.
That's good. Can I pick your brain about REBA stages, because that's
Sure.
something that students might not be familiar with at all, and how do they guide the work you do?
REBA stages is 0 through to 6 or even 7. 0, we might as well sort of forget 0. Stage 1 is normally like a feasibility study. So how feasible is it to fit a T hotel, 100 bedrooms on this given site? So it's simple conceptual design thinking, enough to inform the client that this could work, or no, this doesn't work, or you can only get but you can only get 15 bedrooms on a floor on the given footprint of the site, and not 20, which therefore if you want 100 rooms, that's got to be bigger, got to be taller, and that may say, oh, okay, well, there's a limit on the height of the building contextually, so actually the site will only take 75 bedrooms or even 60. Do you see what I mean? So that's where the feasibility exercise comes in, and that sort of sets the tone for the project, if you like. Stage 2 is called concept design, which we use. So we're now developing the design in parallel with developing the brief with Claire, if you like, or with the Port Authority, for example. And it's then becoming a little bit more detailed. During stage 2, you would probably put a pre-application in with the planning authority to get their views on things, on the project, for example. You would then also start to be thinking about how the structural grid might affect the design, what kind of key services requirements it might be. For example, floor to floor heights. We said, okay, well, we'll work on the basis of a 3-meter floor to floor height for the bedrooms and a 4-meter floor height for the ground floor, front and back of house. Does that work? And then the services engineers would come back and say, well, no, maybe we need 3.3 because we can't get our services in that floor zone, for example. Stage 3 normally is leading towards a formal planning application to the local authority. So again, you're developing the design. By that stage, there could be, for example, an operator involved, such as Premier Inn or Moxie or now Celtic Manor. So the specifics of the project are becoming clearer. We need rooms of this dimension by that dimension with this functionality, and the bathroom's got to be this size, for example. And then on the front of house, where we want covers for so many people, so many covers. We need a bar area, or we don't need a bar area. Depends on, again, these are operator requirements depending on who it is. Whenever you go into Premier Inn, for example, it's not a big bar area at all, is it? Certainly compared to T Hotel, and the front of house functions in a Premier Inn are quite different to the Celtic Manor ones. You've got a greater dining facility, for example, at T Hotel than you would have at a Premier Inn, or certain Premier Inns. So what I'm trying to say is the operator requirements become more important. The project therefore becomes more real in terms of design. And you're able to develop it, more positively, if you like. You start to think about you have to think about what the materials are, and then you're also starting to develop ideas about how the structure and the M&E are properly integrated into the design, and how they would affect it. And these impacts are then overcome prior to you putting the design in to the local authority. And then they then require, we will want a sample of the stonework, we want a sample of the brick, the windows, that sort of stuff. When you get to stage 4, is basically technical design development. So you start to develop the design from a far more technical point of view. You know, you're really interrogating how the thing is put together and what the details are. What, from a detail point of view, what is it that you want to see? You know, what, I'll give you an example on the T Hotel, for example. The front of house sticks out slightly from the hotel bedrooms above. So this is the line of the hotel bedrooms above. Then the front of house sticks out slightly. That's because we were trying to create as much space as we possibly could. But then how does that junction work? So we've tried to create, for example, a sort of shadow gap type situation, so that the front of house is looking as if it's coming out from underneath. Does that make sense? So if you looked at the hotel from the other side, you'll see it almost looks as if that long glazed frontage is disconnected from the building above. It's almost floating, isn't it? In that sense. So you know, it's those sort of subtleties of detail that you start to develop to the point where a contractor or a series of contractors can then put a price against it. Then you would, once a contractor is on board, probably halfway through stage 4, they then come in with quite often with their own ideas about how to build it. And I'll give you a good example. For example, if we designed the T Hotel as a concrete frame all the way through, top to bottom, and the contractor came in and said, well, actually I can save you £1 million, or I don't, I'm quoting figures, don't read too much into them. If we had a timber frame, for example, which is what we have at T Hotel. So we have a concrete base, ground to first floor, and then above there is 4 floors of timber frame, and that has saved an enormous amount of money and made the project therefore more viable, or to the point where you could spend more money on things that might be more important aesthetically, or from a user's point of view, you could spend more money on the front of house, for example. Stage 5 is when the building therefore is on site, and we're working much more closely with the contractor. The contractor's building it, we're coming down, helping them, developing certain details. And an example there would be all the curtain walling along the frontage, where to the water side. The details of that would come from the people who make it, who make the windows, make the curtain walling. So we would then be assessing that in relation to the design, tweaking the details, where we wouldn't do the details of the curtain walling product itself, because those details already exist with the manufacturer or the people who are going to install it. So we then would work with them to make sure that everything fits in relation to our design and in relation to also how the contractor will want to build it. So any product or something like that, key product, for example, the timber frame, the windows, the curtain walling, the doors, the screens, anything like that, they're all designed by subcontractors / manufacturers / installers. But that's all part of what goes on during stage 5. Stage 6 is handover, so it's things like preparing operation and maintenance manuals for the users of the building. So T Hotel, the Celtic Manor team, and we would give those to Claire's team as well as the owners of the building. I can't remember what stage 7 is. Stage 7 is like building in operation. So it's is it performing as you wanted it to? Are there teething problems? It's that sort of stuff.
And snagging and things like that, is it?
Snagging comes at the end of stage 5, prior to handover. And then there's normally a defects liability period of probably in the context of the T Hotel, that would have been 12 months. So during that 12-month period, what are the things that don't work? Are there problems that keep coming up? And there will be a retention on the part of the contractor to that. So if they I think they had a couple of leaks and things during that 12-month period, which the contractor came back and sorted out. Hopefully, I don't think it was anything fundamental. So that's 12 months after handover. So that's sort of stage 6/7 in terms of REBA stages. That's probably about it in a nutshell. It's very simplistic.
What about like a maintenance schedule? Where does that fit?
Yeah, that's the O&M manuals, the operation and maintenance manuals. We would be preparing those with the contractor, and the contractor obviously is getting things like, how do you clean the windows? He would be getting that from the people who've put the glazing in, for example. How do you maintain stuff on the roof? So it's all to do with that. That comes at handover, so at the end of stage 5. So we would give that stuff to Claire and the T Hotel operators. There's a lot of that's is prepared by other people. For example, how does the boiler work? How does this work? How does that work? We would be more concerned about how you might clean the brickwork and things like that, and then more architectural stuff. But yeah, it's across the board.
That's brilliant. I was going to ask you a question about like sustainability and like any systems that are in place in the building that save energy in the long term. So obviously, like trying to drive everything towards carbon net zero. So are there any decisions that have been made along the line of incorporating technology that's helping that, or like passive solar game or anything like that?
Yeah, you've got photovoltaic panels on the roof is probably the biggest one, to be honest. I think also the way that the building is designed front to back is you could argue is sustainable. I think there are aspects of sustainability which not just technology. It's for example, are you uplifted if you come into the building? Does it give you a good feeling? There's all sorts of well-being aspects, I think, to sustainability these days. Quite rightly too. You don't want to go into a building and feel crap, do you, to be honest? So those sorts of things, I think, are fundamental parts of design. The orientation of the building relative to sun path, for example, and also just fundamentally designing the building relative to its context. These aren't necessarily technological stuff. You expect these days that a lot of the M&E has technology built into it. Lights only come on when you walk down a corridor. That sort of stuff. This is all common now, which I think is great. We shouldn't have to sort of say, oh, there's the building design now, and now we'll do sustainability. We shouldn't be like that. It should just be endemic in the way that you think and design the building in the first place.
We talked about how the building regs have kind of notched up the levels of insulation in buildings and having to have PV panels as part of any build and things like that. That's just like you say, that's increasing the standard. Yes, the standard starting off point for builds, isn't it? Yeah.
Definitely, yeah.
Very good.
Building regs is a standard, and you're quite right. Over the years, that standard keeps growing. Air tightness, insulation, U values. They're getting smaller, lower and lower and lower. So what happens is the wall thickness is getting fatter and fatter and fatter as you put more and more insulation into improving the the environmental credentials of the building. What that also means is, as part of that, for example, all of the sort of post Grenfell issues that we've had with using polystyrene as a wall insulation, that now it's gone away. So if we all need to use rock wool now, and so the equivalent U value you would get from a rock wool panel would be from there to there. So again, wall thicknesses are getting fatter and fatter as we you know, and again, I mentioned air tightness. That's another really important factor in terms of driving down the cost of servicing the building. Celtic, the other thing to mention in that regard actually is Celtic Manor themselves, and how they use the building and what they do is equally as important from a sustainability point of view as just having the physical building there itself. It's how it's used. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. You had a fantastic insight into the building. Thank you for your time. Wonderful.
No problem at all.
It must be incredible to see your vision made real when you come past the building. What's that feel like as an architect when you drive up something that existed in your brain?
It's the best feeling. It's the best feeling that it's the best feeling in the world.
So if I had students in my class who were looking at architecture as a career, would you give them any advice?
I'll give them 2 pieces of advice. It's one of the most fulfilling jobs that you could possibly imagine, but it doesn't pay very well, I'm sorry to say. But so,
and on that note, I'll cut that bit out, okay?
Okay, you can cut that bit out. Going back to your other question, it is one of the most fulfilling jobs. I couldn't do anything else. The icing on the cake is knowing that the Tea Hotel has been successful. That really is, because that's what we're here to do, aren't we? We're here to make our clients' business work better. You know, whether that's a school, a hotel, block of flats, anything, or somebody's house. If it's improving their business or their life, then we've done our job properly. You know, and I think that is the really wonderful thing about the Tea Hotel it just seems to be very, very popular. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, like we had a look, the students might want to have a look through the portfolio of work that Holden Matthias have got on your website.
Of course.
You have done quite a lot of educational projects, haven't you? As a
mostly sort of higher education. Yeah. Not so many schools, more university work. Yeah.
All right. Well, we're due a build in Milford School someday. I don't know when, but it'll be interesting to see what that's going to look like.
Yeah. Well, there are practices who just literally that's all they do is education, which makes it more difficult for us to get involved in that sort of stuff. But a lot of the education projects that we have been involved in usually been one-offs. You know, a man for universities in the main. But yeah, they're welcome to look on the website.
Great.
The Tea Hotel will be on there, I think.
Yeah, I think we've had a brief look. I'm going to probably point them to some other resources. But this video will be a core for them to dip into and find really useful information. So thank you very much for your time. It's been absolutely brilliant. Thanks
no problem at all.
Take care. Bye now.
Thanks, Steve. I'll speak to you soon.
Okay, thanks, Claire. Take care. Bye.